The sun was setting behind the towering skyscrapers, casting long shadows over the bustling city. Liam Hayes, one of the richest and most influential men in the country, walked distractedly through the narrow streets of the center. It wasn't common for him to go out without his bodyguards, but that day, he wanted to feel the real world, away from the luxurious offices and endless meetings. As he adjusted his expensive coat over his shoulders, his eye was caught by something unusual. At the corner of a worn-out square, 4 children were playing. But it wasn't the fact that they were there that left him static. That's how they were. Impossible, he muttered, stopping in the middle of the sidewalk. The 4 children were identical, with the same golden brown hair, the same bright green eyes, and the same facial features he saw in the mirror every day. Liam felt a shiver run down his spine. For a moment, the sound of the city seemed to disappear. He blinked a few times, trying to process what he was seeing. A thin woman with messy blonde hair appeared next to the children, beckoning them to come closer. "Boys, stay together please," she said, her voice thick with concern. Liam took a few steps towards them, unable to control his curiosity. "Excuse me," he said, trying to sound casual, but his voice carried an unmistakable tension. The woman turned quickly, her blue eyes wide. "Yes. Can I help you? These children. Are they your children?" Liam asked, voice a little firmer now. The woman hesitated, hugging the little ones instinctively. "Why do you want to know?" Liam looked down at the boys again, unable to look away. It was as if he was looking at a younger version of himself multiplied by 4. He felt his heart racing and his palms sweating. "They look like me," he said, almost without realizing he had spoken out loud. The woman turned pale. She squeezed the children's shoulders tighter, as if she was protecting them from something. "You must be mistaken," he replied quickly. Liam narrowed his eyes, noticing the anxiety in her posture. "I am not mistaken. Who are they?" The boys watched him in silence, confused but intrigued. One of the children, the boldest, stepped forward. "Who are you, young man?" Liam smiled, but it was a smile full of questions and a touch of nervousness. "My name is Liam," he replied. "And I think we need to talk." The woman shook her head, taking the boy's hand. "That's none of your business." "With all due respect, it seems so," Liam said firmly. "If these kids have any connection to me, I need to know." She hesitated again, her face betraying the panic she felt. Finally, he said in a low tone, "Not here. Not now." Liam crossed his arms, determined. "Then tell me where and when." "It won't end here." Her eyes fixed on his, as if assessing whether he was a threat or a chance at redemption. After a long silence, she let out a sigh and nodded. "Tomorrow. At 10. In the cafe next to the market. I explain everything." Liam nodded, even though his heart was in turmoil. He watched as the woman and children disappeared into the crowd, leaving him standing there with more questions than answers. The next morning, Liam Hayes sat at a corner table in the modest cafe near the busy market. It was a far cry from the elegant, sophisticated restaurants he was used to, but something about the buzz of casual conversations and the clink of mismatched china cups grounded him. For once, he wasn't Liam Hayes, the billionaire tycoon. He was simply a man with questions that demanded answers. He looked at the clock. 9:58. His fingers tapped the wooden table, the polished surface stained from years of use. Outside, the sun bathed the street in a warm glow, but Liam felt a chill in his chest. Exactly at 10 o'clock, the woman entered. His face was a mix of defiance and anxiety, his posture rigid as if bracing for a storm. The 4 children followed behind her, their identical green eyes scanning the room curiously. Liam stood, his imposing body catching their attention. The woman hesitated for a moment before walking towards him. "You came," she said softly, though there was no surprise in her tone. "You said you would explain everything," Liam replied, pointing to the seat in front of him. "That's what I'm here for." She sat down cautiously, guiding the children to nearby chairs. The older boy, the bold one from the night before, looked at Liam with unfiltered curiosity. "Why do you look like us?" Liam's breath hitched, the child's innocence cutting through the tension. "That's what I'm here to find out." The woman cleared her throat, her hands twisting together on the table. "My name is Claire. And this is going to sound unbelievable, but I owe you the truth." Liam leaned in, his sharp eyes never leaving hers. "I'm listening." Claire took a deep breath, her gaze flickering to the children before settling back on Liam. 7 years ago, I was desperate. My mother was dying, and I couldn't afford the treatment she needed. I signed up for a program at a fertility clinic." "A fertility clinic?" Liam interrupted, his voice edged with suspicion. "Yes," Claire said firmly. "They paid well for surrogates, and I thought it was my only option. I didn't know the details of the donor, only that he was anonymous. I carried the pregnancy, gave birth, and walked away with enough money to save my mom." Liam felt his stomach drop. "You're saying, these children are yours," she said bluntly. "They're your biological children." The words hit him like a freight train. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. He looked at the children again, truly seeing them for the first time. The sharp angles of their faces, the golden brown hair that caught the light just so, the striking green eyes. It was undeniable. "Why didn't I know about this?" Liam demanded, his voice rising. "You were never supposed to," Claire said, her tone defensive. "The clinic assured me that everything was anonymous. They promised the donor wouldn't be involved." Liam shook his head, the enormity of the situation pressing down on him. "But they're my children. My blood. And they're my life," Claire shot back, her voice trembling. "I raised them. I've cared for them every single day. I didn't want them to be caught up in your world, with your money and power and whatever baggage comes with it." The oldest boy, clearly sensing the tension, reached for Claire's hand. "Mom, what's going on?" Claire softened, her resolve cracking as she turned to the children. "It's complicated, sweetheart." Liam rubbed his temples, his mind racing. "This isn't just about me, Claire. These kids deserve to know where they come from. They deserve a stable life," she countered, "not to be paraded around as the heirs of some billionaire they've never met." Liam's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to take a deep breath. "I'm not trying to take them from you. I need to be a part of their lives. They're mine too." The air between them grew heavy, the cafe's background noise fading as the weight of their conversation pressed down. Finally, Claire sighed. "I need time to think about this." Liam nodded, though every fiber of his being screamed for immediate answers. "Take the time you need. But this conversation isn't over." Claire stood, gathering the children as she prepared to leave. The bold one paused, looking up at Liam with a mix of curiosity and something that resembled hope. "Will we see you again?" Liam crouched down, meeting the boy's gaze. "I promise you will." The drive back to his penthouse was a blur. Liam gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white against the smooth leather. The city buzzed around him, indifferent to the storm raging inside. Every honk, every flash of headlights seemed distant compared to the echoes of Claire's words. "These children are yours." Arriving at his building, Liam stepped into the elevator, his reflection staring back at him in the polished steel walls. His usually composed demeanor was gone, replaced by an expression of bewilderment and doubt. For the first time in years, he felt unmoored, as though the foundation of his carefully built empire had cracked beneath him. As the elevator doors slid open, he was greeted by the quiet opulence of his penthouse. The large glass windows framed the glittering skyline, but tonight, the view brought no comfort. He sank onto the sleek leather couch, running a hand through his hair as memories of the children flashed in his mind. Their identical green eyes, so much like his own. The silence was broken by the ring of his phone. It was his assistant, Jenna. He almost ignored it but thought better of it and picked up. "Yes. Mr. Hayes, you missed 2 meetings today. Is everything all right?" Jenna's voice was professional but tinged with concern. "I need some time, Jenna," he said, his voice distant. "Cancel my appointments for tomorrow." There was a pause. "Of course, sir." Let me know if you need anything. He ended the call without another word, tossing the phone onto the coffee table. His mind raced as questions piled up. How could this have happened? Why hadn't he been notified by the clinic? And what did this mean for his future? The next day, Liam found himself in his home office, poring over documents from the clinic. It hadn't taken long for his lawyers to secure the information he needed. As he scanned the pages, the truth became clear. Claire had been telling the truth. Every detail of the surrogacy was documented, including the assurance of anonymity. He leaned back in his chair, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. His father's voice echoed in his mind, a memory from years ago. Family is everything, Liam. Without it, all the success in the world means nothing. But what did he know about family? His parents had passed when he was young, leaving him to navigate life on his own. The idea of children, his children, felt foreign and overwhelming. The sound of his intercom interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, there's a woman here to see you. She says it's urgent." His heart skipped. "Send her up." Moments later, Claire entered, her expression guarded but determined. She was alone this time. "I thought about what you said," she began, standing in the middle of the room as though unsure if she should sit. "And," Liam prompted, gesturing for her to take a seat. "I want to be clear about one thing," she said, her voice steady. "I'm not looking for a fight. I just want what's best for the kids." "So do I," Liam said softly. "But what does that look like?" Claire hesitated, her eyes darting to the expansive windows before settling on Liam. "I don't know. I've always done this alone. I've never had to think about sharing them with anyone, let alone someone like you." "Someone like me? You live in a world of wealth and power," she said, gesturing around the room. "This isn't their world, Liam. They're just kids. They don't need mansions or trust funds. They need stability. They need love." Liam exhaled, her words hitting a nerve. "And you think I can't give them that?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But I need to be sure before I let you into their lives." Liam nodded, appreciating her honesty even as it stung. "Then let me prove it. Let me get to know them." Claire studied him for a long moment. "Okay," she said finally. "But on my terms." "Name them," Liam said without hesitation. "You meet them in neutral places," she began. "No big gestures, no extravagant gifts. Just you and them, getting to know each other." "Agreed," Liam said. "What else?" "That's it for now," she said, standing. "We'll take it one step at a time." As she turned to leave, Liam called out, "Thank you, Claire, for giving me a chance." She paused, her expression softening. "Don't make me regret it." Liam arrived at the local park Claire had suggested, an unassuming space with swings, a jungle gym, and a stretch of open grass that sparkled under the midday sun. The air carried the faint scent of freshly cut grass and the laughter of children. Dressed in casual jeans and a button-down shirt, Liam felt uncharacteristically out of place. No tailored suit, no commanding boardroom, just a man stepping into a world he didn't yet understand. Claire was already there, sitting on a bench under the shade of a sprawling oak tree. She waved him over as the children played a few feet away, their laughter bubbling like music. Liam's heart raced as he spotted them. 4 identical little figures darting between the swings and the slide, their energy boundless. "Hi," Claire greeted as he approached. She seemed calmer today, though her protective aura hadn't diminished. "Hi," Liam replied, his gaze fixed on the children. "They seem happy." "They are," Claire said, her tone soft. "They don't know you're here yet." "I wanted to ease them into it." Liam nodded, suddenly nervous. "What do I say?" "Be yourself," she said with a small smile. "They'll let you know what they need." A moment later, Claire called out to the children. They ran over, their identical faces flushed with excitement. "Kids, this is Liam," Claire said gently. "He's a friend." The introductions were brief but impactful. Each child had a distinct personality despite their mirrored appearances. Ethan, the oldest by minutes, was inquisitive, his green eyes scanning Liam as though trying to figure him out. Emma was shy, her gaze darting away every time Liam tried to meet it. Oliver was the jokester, grinning mischievously even before saying a word. And Ava, the smallest, clung to Claire's leg, her expression cautious but curious. "Hi," Liam said, kneeling to their level. "It's nice to meet you. Do you like swings?" Ethan asked abruptly, his tone almost challenging. I haven't been on one in a long time, Liam admitted. But I'm willing to try if you show me how it's done. Ethan's face lit up, and within moments, Liam found himself being led to the swings. Oliver and Ethan took turns pushing him, their laughter contagious as he pretended to struggle with emotion. Emma watched from a distance, her fingers twirling a strand of her light brown hair, while Ava stayed close to Claire, her tiny hands gripping her mother's shirt. The sun warmed Liam's back as he swung higher, his laughter blending with the children's. For the first time in years, the weight of his responsibilities felt lighter. As the afternoon wore on, Liam found himself in awe of their energy. They moved seamlessly from the swings to a game of tag, where Liam was declared it by unanimous vote. You can't catch me, Oliver teased, darting behind a tree. Don't be so sure, Liam called back, chasing after him. His polished leather loafers weren't ideal for sprinting on grass, but he didn't care. At one point, he noticed Emma sitting alone on a bench, her gaze focused on a small notebook in her hands. He approached cautiously, not wanting to startle her. Hey, he said softly. What are you working on? Emma hesitated before holding up the notebook. I draw, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam sat beside her, giving her space. Can I see? She nodded, flipping through the pages. The drawings were simple but expressive. Flowers, animals, and one that caught Liam's breath. A family of 4 holding hands. You're very talented, he said sincerely. Thanks, she murmured, a shy smile tugging at her lips. By the time the sun began to set, the children were visibly tired but happy. Claire approached Liam as they packed up their things. You did good, she said, her tone approving. They're incredible, Liam said, his voice filled with awe. I had no idea. Claire nodded, her expression softening. They are. But this is just the beginning, Liam. They need more than just a fun afternoon. They need consistency. And they'll have it, he said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. Claire studied him for a moment before nodding. Okay. Then we'll see how this goes. As Liam watched the children climb into Claire's car, waving at him through the windows, a swell of emotion tightened his chest. This wasn't just about responsibility or duty anymore. It was about something deeper. Something he hadn't realized he was missing until now. Liam's penthouse felt unusually silent as he leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window, a glass of water in his hand. The city sprawled beneath him, glittering with 1,000 lights, but the vibrant energy of the streets couldn't fill the void he felt. His mind replayed every laugh, every curious glance, and every moment from the park that day. The children's faces lingered in his thoughts, each one etched with its own personality. Ethan's fierce curiosity, Emma's shy creativity, Oliver's mischievous grin, and Ava's quiet yet penetrating gaze. They were unlike anyone he'd ever known. He moved to the couch, setting the glass down on the coffee table. His phone buzzed beside it. Picking it up, he saw a text from Claire. Claire, thanks for today. They had a great time. Let's take it slow, but you're on the right path. A small smile tugged at his lips. The message was short, but the underlying meaning was clear. Progress. The next day, Liam stood in front of a modest toy store, a far cry from the high-end boutiques he was accustomed to. He hesitated for a moment, feeling out of place in his tailored coat and polished shoes. But then he thought of the children and pushed the door open. Inside, the shop was a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds. Shelves were stacked high with everything from puzzles to action figures, and a cheerful melody played over the speakers. Can I help you? Asked a young sales assistant, her smile warm. I'm looking for something for kids, Liam said awkwardly. Okay, she said, her eyes lighting up. What are their ages? They're all 6, he replied, his voice softening. But they're unique. The assistant nodded knowingly and began pulling options from the shelves. Art supplies, building blocks, and even a set of books for bedtime stories. Liam watched as she arranged them on the counter, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and apprehension. As he left the store with the bags in hand, a thought struck him. This was uncharted territory, but it felt right. Later that afternoon, Liam arrived at Claire's house, his heartbeat quickening as he rang the doorbell. When Claire opened the door, she looked at him with a mix of surprise and amusement. Did you buy the entire store? Not quite, he said with a sheepish grin. I wasn't sure what they'd like, so I got a bit of everything. Claire stepped aside to let him in, the faint aroma of fresh-baked cookies wafting through the air. The house was cozy and inviting, a stark contrast to Liam's sleek penthouse. Toys were scattered across the living room, and the sound of laughter echoed from the kitchen. "Come on in," Claire said, gesturing to the couch. Liam placed the bags on the floor, just as the children came bounding into the room. Ethan stopped first, eyeing the bags curiously. "What's that?" he asked, his tone cautious. "A surprise," Liam said, crouching down to their level. "I thought you might like these." Ethan's eyes lit up, but he maintained his composure. Oliver, on the other hand, dove straight for the bags, pulling out a set of colorful building blocks. "Cool!" Oliver exclaimed, already tearing into the packaging. Emma lingered behind her brothers, her gaze darting between Liam and the bags. "There's something in here for you too," Liam said gently, holding up a box of sketch pads and pencils. Emma's face broke into a tentative smile as she took the gift. "Thank you," she whispered. "And for Ava," Liam continued, pulling out a soft stuffed animal, a tiny brown bear with a red bow. Ava's eyes widened as she clutched the bear to her chest, her expression unreadable but tender. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of laughter and discovery. Liam found himself on the floor, helping Ethan construct an elaborate tower, while Oliver kept trying to knock it down. Emma sat nearby, lost in her drawings, occasionally showing Liam her progress. At one point, Ava climbed onto the couch beside him, the bear still clutched in her tiny hands. She leaned against him without a word, her presence both grounding and profound. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the room, Claire watched from the doorway, her arms crossed and a soft smile on her face. "You're good with them," she said quietly when Liam joined her in the kitchen later. "I'm learning," he replied, his voice tinged with emotion. "They make it easy." Claire nodded, studying him for a moment. "They've been through a lot, Liam. But maybe they need you as much as you need them." Her words hit him like a bolt of lightning. He'd spent years building walls, chasing success, and avoiding connections. But here, in this humble home, surrounded by 4 children and the warmth of their laughter, he felt something he hadn't in a long time: belonging. Liam's car cut through the city streets as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and deep violet. The hum of the engine was steady, but his mind raced with questions he couldn't silence. Who were these children? And why did they strike such a profound chord in him? As he arrived at his penthouse, the stark contrast between its pristine, cold interior and the warmth of Claire's home hit him. The toys scattered on her floor, the aroma of cookies, and the quiet hum of familial chaos had awakened something dormant within him. The next morning, Liam sat at his expansive desk, the light from the floor-to-ceiling windows illuminating the file in front of him. He had asked his assistant, Natalie, to dig into the adoption agency where Claire had registered the children. The file was slim, too slim for his liking. "Sir," Natalie said as she entered the office, her expression cautious. "I followed up on your request, but the records are incomplete." "Incomplete how?" Liam's voice was measured, but the undertone of frustration was evident. "The agency closed down a few years ago under suspicious circumstances," she explained, placing another folder on his desk. There were reports of mismanagement and missing records, but nothing concrete. It's like whoever was behind it wanted to erase their tracks. Liam's fingers tightened around the edge of the folder. The pieces weren't adding up. "Keep digging," he said firmly. "I want to know everything. Where they came from, who their biological parents were, and why those records are missing." Natalie nodded, leaving the room with a determined stride. That afternoon, Liam found himself back at Claire's house. His knock was met with a chorus of footsteps as the children rushed to the door. "It's him!" Oliver shouted, throwing the door open. Liam stepped inside, his eyes immediately scanning the room for Claire. She appeared moments later, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Back so soon?" she teased, though her tone held genuine curiosity. "I needed to see them," Liam admitted, his gaze softening as he looked at the children. "They've been asking about you," Claire said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Especially Ava. She's been carrying that bear everywhere." Liam smiled, the thought of Ava clutching the bear tugging at his heartstrings. As the children played in the living room, Liam joined Claire in the kitchen. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the faint scent of lavender from a vase on the counter. "Claire," he began hesitantly, "I've started looking into their past." Her hand froze mid-pour, and she set the coffee pot down slowly. Why? They deserve answers, he said gently. And so do you. Claire's shoulders sagged, and she turned to face him. I've tried, Liam. For years I tried. But every time I got close, I hit a wall. It's like someone doesn't want their story to be told. That's exactly why we need to keep pushing, Liam insisted, his voice firm yet compassionate. They deserve to know where they came from. Claire studied him for a long moment before nodding. All right. But promise me one thing. Whatever you find, don't let it change how you see them. I promise, Liam said without hesitation. Later that evening, as the children settled into their bedtime routine, Liam sat with Ava on the couch. The little girl was quieter than usual, her big brown eyes studying him intently. Do you like the bear? He asked softly. Ava nodded, clutching it tighter. I named him Teddy. Teddy's a good name, Liam said with a smile. You know, Teddy looks like he's very brave. Just like you. Ava tilted her head, her expression curious. Am I brave? Yes, Liam said without a doubt. You're one of the bravest people I've ever met. For the first time, Ava smiled, a small shy smile that lit up her face. As Liam drove home that night, a memory surfaced, fleeting but vivid. He was a boy, not much older than the children, standing in the rain outside a large brick building. A woman's voice called his name, but the details were hazy, like a dream he couldn't quite grasp. Shaking his head, Liam focused on the road. But deep down, he knew this journey wasn't just about the children. It was about confronting the ghosts of his own past. Liam's office was silent, save for the faint hum of the city below. He sat at his desk, staring at the file Natalie had handed him earlier. Inside was a single photograph, a grainy, faded image of 4 infants swaddled in identical blankets. This was all they had? Liam asked, his voice edged with disbelief. Natalie nodded, her usual calm demeanor faltering. It's strange, sir. There are no birth certificates, no medical records. Just this photo and a single note attached. Liam picked up the small piece of paper, its edges yellowed with age. The handwriting was hurried, almost frantic. Keep them safe. They're better off apart. What does this mean? Liam murmured, his mind racing. I don't know, Natalie admitted. But the note was found in the agency's archives, tucked away in a sealed envelope. Whoever left it didn't want to be found. Liam's thoughts churned as he drove back to Claire's house. The photograph and the note burned in his mind, a puzzle he couldn't yet piece together. When he arrived, the children were outside, playing in the yard. Their laughter rang out, a stark contrast to the weight of the mystery surrounding them. Claire stepped onto the porch, her arms crossed as she watched Liam approach. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, her tone light but her eyes filled with concern. I might as well have, Liam replied, pulling the photograph from his jacket pocket. He handed it to her silently. Claire's eyes widened as she studied the image. This is them, she whispered. When they were babies. Liam nodded. It was all I could find along with this note. He handed her the scrap of paper, and she read it aloud, her voice trembling. Keep them safe. They're better off apart. What does this mean, Liam? I don't know, he admitted. But someone went to great lengths to keep their origins hidden. As they talked, the air grew heavy with the scent of rain. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and the first drops began to fall. Claire ushered the children inside, their giggles echoing through the house as they shook off the rain. Once the children were settled with warm blankets and hot cocoa, Liam and Claire returned to the kitchen. The atmosphere was tense, the sound of rain against the windows amplifying the weight of their conversation. Do you think they were separated on purpose? Claire asked, her voice barely above a whisper. It's possible, Liam said, his gaze fixed on the photo. But why? And why are they together now? Claire's hands clenched into fists. They deserve answers. They deserve to know who they are, where they came from. And we'll find those answers, Liam promised, his voice firm. As night fell, Liam stayed for dinner, the children's chatter providing a brief respite from the looming mystery. Oliver recounted a story about a frog he'd caught in the yard, while Ava carefully arranged her peas in a perfect circle on her plate. Do you have a family, Mr. Liam? Ava asked suddenly, her big brown eyes locking onto his. The question caught him off guard. I don't, he admitted, his voice soft. Why not? Oliver piped up. Liam hesitated, searching for the right words. Sometimes life doesn't turn out the way we expect, he said finally. But I think family isn't just about who you're born to. It's about who you choose to have in your life. The children seemed satisfied with his answer, but Claire watched him closely, her expression unreadable. After dinner, as the children drifted off to sleep, Claire and Liam sat in the living room. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and cool. I think you're becoming a part of their family, Claire said softly, breaking the silence. Liam looked at her, his eyes searching hers. I want to be, he admitted. But I need to understand their story first. Claire nodded, her gaze dropping to her hands. I'm scared, Liam. Scared of what we might find. So am I, he confessed. But we owe it to them to try. As Liam left that night, the weight of their conversation settled heavily on his shoulders. The photograph and the note felt like pieces of a puzzle he was only beginning to uncover. In his car, he stared out at the city lights, his mind racing. Someone had wanted to keep these children apart. But why? And who? One thing was certain. This mystery ran deeper than he'd ever imagined. Liam's hands trembled as he held the file. The weight of Natalie's words hung in the air like a thunderstorm waiting to break. What do you mean, about me? He asked, his voice barely audible. Natalie glanced around, as if the walls themselves might betray their conversation. It's better if we discuss this inside, she said firmly. Liam stepped aside, allowing her to enter. She placed the file on the polished oak table in his living room and opened it, revealing a series of documents and photographs. This, Natalie began, pointing to a faded birth certificate, is yours. Liam frowned, leaning closer. His name was clearly printed at the top, but beneath it, in the section labeled siblings, were 4 names he didn't recognize. This doesn't make sense, Liam said, shaking his head. I don't have siblings. Natalie met his gaze, her expression somber. You didn't think you did. But this document, combined with the agency's records, paints a different picture. The room seemed to shrink as Liam scanned the documents. Each page brought new revelations. A record of his parents adopting him as an infant, notes from the same agency that handled the children's cases, and a photograph of a woman he didn't recognize, holding an infant with a striking resemblance to him. Who is this? He asked, pointing to the woman in the photo. Natalie hesitated before answering. We believe she's your biological mother. She abandoned you, and the others, shortly after your birth. Liam felt the air leave his lungs. The others? Natalie nodded. The children, sir. The ones you've been helping. They're your siblings. Liam stood abruptly, pacing the room. His mind raced, replaying every interaction he'd had with the children. Their smiles, their laughter, the strange sense of connection he'd felt from the moment he met them. It all made sense now. How is this possible? He demanded, his voice rising. Why didn't anyone tell me? Natalie remained calm, her tone measured. It seems your biological mother went to great lengths to keep her identity, and yours, a secret. The agency's records were buried, likely at her request. But why? Liam pressed. Why abandon us? Why separate us? I don't have those answers, Natalie admitted. But I think the children might. They mentioned someone. A woman they referred to as the lady. Liam's thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. He and Natalie exchanged a wary glance before he opened it. Standing there was Claire, her expression troubled. I need to talk to you, she said, her voice urgent. Come in, Liam said, stepping aside. Claire hesitated when she saw Natalie, but quickly continued. The children, they've been asking questions. About their past. About you. Liam swallowed hard. What did you tell them? Nothing, Claire said. But they're smart, Liam. They know something's going on. Liam ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling to the surface. This is too much, he admitted. I just found out. They're my siblings. Claire's eyes widened. What? Natalie interjected. It's true. The records confirm it. But there's more we need to uncover. The 3 of them sat in the living room, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Outside, the city buzzed with life, oblivious to the storm brewing within. What do we tell them? Claire asked, breaking the silence. The truth, Liam said firmly. They deserve to know. Natalie nodded in agreement. But we should tread carefully. They've been through a lot, and this revelation could be overwhelming. Claire sighed, her shoulders slumping. I just want what's best for them. So do I, Liam said. Which is why we need to find out the rest of the story. Who is this lady? And why did she keep us apart? As night fell, Liam drove to Claire's house, his mind heavy with the weight of the truth. The children were waiting for him, their eyes wide with curiosity as he entered. Mr. Liam, Ava exclaimed, running to him. Liam knelt down, his heart aching as he looked into her innocent eyes. I need to talk to all of you, he said gently. The children gathered around, their expressions a mix of excitement and apprehension. Claire and Natalie stood nearby, watching silently. Liam took a deep breath. There's something important I need to tell you, he began. It's about who you are, and who I am. The room fell silent as the children leaned closer, their attention fixed on him. We're family, Liam said finally, his voice breaking. I'm your brother. The children's reactions were a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, confusion, and tentative joy. Ava clung to Liam, her small hands gripping his shirt. You're really our brother? She asked, her voice trembling. Yes, Liam said, his eyes brimming with tears. And I promise I'll do everything I can to keep us together. Oliver spoke up, his voice steady despite his young age. What happened to us? Why weren't we together before? Liam exchanged a glance with Claire and Natalie before answering. That's what we're going to find out. Together. The old train station loomed in the early morning mist, its rusted iron beams and cracked stone walls a ghost of its former glory. Liam parked his car a safe distance away, the cryptic message clutched tightly in his hand. As he stepped onto the platform, the air was damp and heavy, carrying the faint scent of oil and decay. Each step echoed ominously, and his breath formed visible clouds in the cool morning air. Hello, Liam called out, his voice cutting through the silence. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a woman, draped in a dark coat, her face partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. Her posture was rigid, her movements deliberate as she approached. You came, she said, her voice low but commanding. Who are you? Liam asked, his tone laced with suspicion. And what do you know about my family? The woman paused, tilting her head slightly. You can call me Eliza. I've been watching you, and the children. You've stirred up things that were meant to stay buried. Liam clenched his fists, his frustration bubbling to the surface. Enough with the riddles. If you know something, you need to tell me, now. Eliza sighed, reaching into her coat pocket. For a moment, Liam tensed, but she pulled out a photograph, not a weapon. She handed it to him without a word. The image showed a younger Eliza, standing alongside a woman Liam recognized from the documents, his biological mother. In the photo, she held 2 infants, while Eliza held the other 2. That's you, Eliza said, pointing to the baby in his mother's arms. And those are your siblings. Liam's grip on the photograph tightened. Why were we separated? He demanded, his voice shaking. Eliza hesitated, her gaze dropping to the ground. Your mother. She made choices. Some to protect you, others out of desperation. The weight of her words hit Liam like a tidal wave. Protect us from what? Eliza glanced around, her paranoia palpable. There were people after her. After all of you. She owed them money, favors, things she couldn't repay. Splitting you up was her way of keeping you safe. And the children? Why are they on the streets? That wasn't part of her plan, Eliza admitted. She arranged for each of you to go to different families, but not all of those families kept their promises. The agency lost track of the others. Until now. Liam stepped closer, his voice a mix of anger and desperation. Where is she now? My mother. What happened to her? Eliza's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She's gone. She died years ago. But before she passed, she made me promise to look after all of you. I failed. The confession hung heavy in the air. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the only sound the distant hum of a passing train. You can still make it right, Liam said finally. Help me keep them safe. Help me give them the life she wanted for us. Eliza nodded slowly. There's more you need to know about the people she was running from. They're still out there, and if they find out you've uncovered this. Liam interrupted her, his resolve unshaken. Let them come. I won't let anyone hurt my family. Eliza handed him another envelope, her hands trembling. These are the last pieces of the puzzle. Names, locations, everything I could find. But be careful, Liam. The truth has a cost. He took the envelope, his jaw set with determination. I'm willing to pay it. As Eliza turned to leave, she stopped and looked over her shoulder. You're stronger than she ever imagined. Don't let her sacrifice be in vain. The drive back to Claire's house was a blur, the envelope burning a hole in the passenger seat. When he arrived, the children were still asleep, their small faces peaceful and innocent. Liam sat at the kitchen table, the contents of the envelope spread out before him. Bank statements, letters, and addresses painted a picture of a woman who had fought desperately to protect her children. Claire entered the room, her footsteps soft. What did you find out? Everything, Liam said, his voice heavy. And it's worse than I imagined. Together, they combed through the documents, piecing together the fragments of his mother's life. A name kept appearing. A man connected to her debts and the agency that had failed the children. This is where we start, Liam said, pointing to the address of a decrepit warehouse on the outskirts of town. Claire hesitated. Are you sure about this? It sounds dangerous. I don't care, Liam said, his eyes blazing with determination. I owe it to her, and to them, to finish what she started. The warehouse loomed in the distance, a relic of a bygone era. Its cracked walls were stained with graffiti, and the windows, shattered and dusty, reflected the dull gray sky. The address from Eliza's envelope had led Liam here, to the heart of his mother's secrets. Claire had insisted on coming along, her worry evident in the way she gripped her seatbelt as Liam parked the car. Are you sure about this? She asked, her voice trembling. I don't have a choice, Liam replied, his jaw tight. If there's even a chance to end this, I have to take it. The air was cold as they stepped out of the car, the sharp wind biting at their skin. Liam's heart pounded in his chest, his senses on high alert. He reached into his pocket, feeling the comforting weight of the small flashlight and pocket knife he'd brought along. Inside, the warehouse was eerily silent, the air thick with the smell of mildew and rust. Their footsteps echoed as they moved cautiously through the dimly lit space. Claire pointed to a stack of crates in the corner. Over there, she whispered. It looks like someone's been here recently. Liam crouched down, sifting through the scattered papers and discarded belongings. Among them, he found a folder marked with the agency's logo, the same one that had handled his and his siblings' placements. Here it is, he said, holding it up. Suddenly, the sound of shuffling footsteps broke the silence. Claire gasped, grabbing Liam's arm as a shadow appeared at the far end of the room. Who's there? Liam demanded, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. The figure stepped into the light, a tall man in his 50s, with graying hair and a scar that ran down his left cheek. His expression was cold, his eyes calculating. You've been digging where you shouldn't, the man said, his tone calm but threatening. Who are you? Liam asked, standing protectively in front of Claire. The name's Victor, the man replied, his lips curling into a smirk. I used to work with your mother. Let's just say, she and I had unfinished business. Liam's fists clenched. You were the one she was running from. You ruined her life. Victor chuckled darkly. She ruined her own life. I just made sure she paid for it. And now, it looks like her debts have caught up with you. Claire stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. These are children we're talking about. They don't deserve to suffer because of your greed. Victor's smirk faded, replaced by a scowl. You think this is about money? Your mother was reckless. She crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed. And now, you've brought this mess back to my doorstep. Before Liam could respond, the sound of a siren blared in the distance. Victor's expression shifted to one of alarm. You called the cops, he snarled, his hand reaching for something inside his coat. No, Liam said, his own confusion evident. The next moments were a blur. Claire grabbed Liam's arm, pulling him behind a stack of crates as Victor drew a weapon. The warehouse flooded with light as police cars surrounded the building, their flashing lights cutting through the darkness. Freeze! A voice boomed, and officers poured into the warehouse, their guns trained on Victor. Liam and Claire stepped out from their hiding spot, their hands raised. An officer approached them, his expression stern but kind. Are you two okay? He asked. Liam nodded. We're fine. But he's the one you want. He gestured toward Victor, who was being handcuffed by two officers. Victor's glare burned into Liam as he was led away. "This isn't over," he growled. As the police cleared the scene, an officer handed Liam the folder he'd found. "Looks like this has what you need," he said. Liam opened it, his hands shaking. Inside were records, photographs, and letters. Pieces of his mother's life that he had never known. One letter stood out, addressed to him. He read it silently, Claire watching as tears streamed down his face. "Liam, if you're reading this, it means you've found the truth. I'm sorry for everything. For the pain, the secrets, and the choices I made. But I never stopped loving you. I hope you can forgive me and find the happiness I always wanted for you." Claire placed a hand on his shoulder. "She would be proud of you." Liam folded the letter carefully, tucking it into his pocket. "This isn't just about me anymore. It's about them. And I'm going to make sure they never have to go through what she did." The sun was just beginning to rise as Liam and Claire returned to the mansion. The golden light filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the room. Everything felt different now. Less imposing, more like the beginning of something hopeful. The children were waiting in the living room, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Seeing Liam and Claire walk in, unharmed, they sprang to their feet. "Are you okay?" Ellie asked, her small hands gripping the edge of the sofa. Liam crouched down, looking into her curious, innocent eyes. "We're fine," he said softly. "And so are you. Everything's going to be okay now." Ellie tilted her head, confusion knitting her brow. "But what about the bad man?" "He's gone," Liam assured her, his voice firm. "He can't hurt us anymore." The other children moved closer, forming a small protective circle around each other. It was a reflex Liam recognized all too well, a habit born from years of relying only on each other. "We're going to make this house a real home," he said, looking at each of them. "No more fear, no more running. You belong here with me." Claire stepped forward, her voice steady but warm. "We'll take this one day at a time. But the most important thing is that you're safe now." Lucas, the oldest, crossed his arms, a skeptical look on his face. "How do we know you won't change your mind?" "People always do." Liam's chest tightened at the boy's words. He saw a younger version of himself in Lucas. Wary, guarded, afraid to trust. "Because I've been where you are," Liam admitted. "I know what it's like to feel like no one wants you. But I promise, I'll prove to you that you're not alone anymore." The room was silent for a moment, the weight of his words settling over them. Then, to Liam's surprise, Ellie stepped forward and wrapped her tiny arms around his neck. "I believe you," she whispered. Her simple act of trust broke the dam. The other children slowly followed, their hesitation giving way to tentative hope. Lucas was the last, his posture stiff, but when he finally hugged Liam, it was with a quiet desperation that spoke volumes. As the morning wore on, the house came alive in a way it never had before. Laughter echoed through the halls as the children explored their new home. Liam and Claire watched from the kitchen, their coffee growing cold as they marveled at the transformation. "I can't believe this is real," Claire said, her voice thick with emotion. Liam reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Neither can I. But I know one thing. It's worth it." Later that day, as the children settled into their rooms, Liam sat at his desk, poring over the documents from the warehouse. The more he read, the more pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. His mother's life had been one of sacrifice and pain, but also of fierce, unwavering love. She had done everything she could to protect him and his siblings, even when it meant making impossible choices. One letter stood out among the rest, its edges worn from years of handling. "Liam," it began, "if you ever feel lost, remember this. Family isn't just about blood. It's about love, loyalty, and the choices we make every day to stand by the people who matter most. Never forget that you are loved." He closed the letter, his chest tight with emotion. His mother's words were a reminder of what truly mattered. As he looked out the window, watching the children play in the garden below, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. This wasn't just his story anymore. It was theirs. And for the first time, Liam knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. Months had passed, and the once sterile mansion was now unrecognizable. The walls, previously adorned with impersonal art, were covered in photos, snapshots of laughter, birthdays, and the simple joy of everyday moments. Toys were scattered across the living room, the faint scent of cookies wafting from the kitchen. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was a home. Liam stood on the balcony, gazing at the sprawling garden below. The children were playing tag, their laughter rising like music. Ellie was the fastest, darting between trees while Lucas pretended to give chase, a rare grin lighting up his face. Lost in thought again? Claire's voice broke through his reverie. He turned to see her leaning against the doorframe, her hair loose and a soft smile playing on her lips. She held 2 mugs of tea, the steam curling lazily in the cool evening air. Just taking it all in, he admitted, accepting a mug. Claire joined him at the railing, her shoulder brushing against his. It's amazing, isn't it? How far they've come. How far we've come. Liam nodded. I used to think my life was complete with just wealth and success. But this is worth more than anything I could have ever imagined. A small voice called up from the garden. Daddy, watch this. Liam's heart swelled at the word. Ellie was balancing precariously on a low branch, waving excitedly. Be careful, Ellie, he called back, unable to hide his smile. Claire chuckled. She's fearless, that one. She reminds me of you, Liam said, his tone teasing. Claire rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her blush. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, the children raced inside, their cheeks flushed from play. Dinner's ready, Ellie announced, her voice carrying through the house. Liam and Claire followed, the warmth of the home enveloping them. The dining table was set, the centerpiece a bouquet of wildflowers the children had picked earlier. Lucas, once so guarded, now helped set the plates, his movements careful but assured. I made the salad, he said proudly. It looks perfect, Liam replied, ruffling the boys' hair. As they all sat down, the chatter was lively, filled with jokes, stories, and the occasional playful argument. It was chaotic, but it was perfect. Liam caught Claire's eye across the table. She gave him a knowing look as if to say, this is what we fought for. After dinner, the children insisted on a movie night. Piled on the couch under a mountain of blankets, they laughed and argued over which film to watch. Liam didn't care. He was content just to be there, surrounded by the people who had become his world. Later that evening, after the children had fallen asleep, Liam sat alone in his study. The room was dimly lit, the soft glow of the desk lamp illuminating a single framed photo. It was a picture of his mother, holding a much younger version of himself. Her smile was warm, her eyes filled with the kind of love that transcends time. Thank you, he whispered, his voice barely audible. He knew she had guided him to this moment, her sacrifices paving the way for the family he now cherished. Claire appeared at the door, her bare feet silent against the floor. You okay? She asked, her voice soft. Liam turned, his expression serene. I am, he said. For the first time in my life, I truly am. She walked over, slipping her hand into his. Together, they stood in silence, the weight of their journey giving way to a shared sense of peace. The next morning, the mansion was alive with activity once more. As Liam helped Lucas fix his bike and Claire braided Ellie's hair, he realized something profound. Life wasn't about the legacy of wealth or power he had once pursued. It was about the connections, the love, and the small everyday moments that wove the fabric of a family. For Liam, the truth was clear. The greatest fortune he had ever found was the one he hadn't been searching for. And as the days turned into years, the memories they created became the foundation of a life well lived, a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Did you enjoy the heartwarming story of Liam and the 4 children who changed his life forever? If you were in Liam's shoes, how would you react when you discovered this surprising truth? Comment below what marked you most on this journey full of twists and turns. What moment made your heart race? Don't forget to like this video, share it with those who love incredible stories and, of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters. Activate the bell to stay up to date with all the news. And now we want to know, do you believe that love and family are the greatest treasure we can have? Comment and join this conversation.